Word.
Hmm?
Is it recording? Oh yeah, we're recording. Did you guys
Okay.
get the message that we're recording?
Yeah.
All right, sweet. All right. So, should we start with the first question? Does Fairfield University fulfill Jefferson's goals for the university? Alex, would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah. So if we give a little bit of a background, he was talking about the bill for a more general diffusion of knowledge, where he kind of underscored the urgency of education in the new republic. And he said education is a vehicle for securing independence. And I think if that is one of Jefferson's goals, I think we do achieve that, because we need education and we need the expansion of it through, the Magis Core and the majors we take to become the people that will continue to hold up democracy in the new republic. And I don't know if anyone agrees with that a little bit or wants to kind of expand on that.
Yeah, so I totally agree with that. In the short, Fairfield University is a next level education, and it does give financial support to the students, which is another perk that Jefferson believed was necessary for next level education. And he believed in merit for next level education, and that's determined by academic achievement here, and that's really what Jefferson believed in. And going more off of Jefferson's strong belief with education in the new republic and how important it was to him, Jefferson also, or this was also brought up in the conversation, that Jefferson was huge for education because he wanted to recognize the geniuses, and that I think college is literally Jefferson's goal, because as college goes on and as we're at Fairfield, I'm sure geniuses will trickle out, just like Jefferson said, and he wanted geniuses to have a purpose of being leaders and to cultivate their gifts as they go on. And I think that really fulfills Jefferson's goals for the university by shaping the characters and trickling up the geniuses. Ryan, do you have any thoughts on that?
I can pick up from there. I think to add or also agree with you guys, I'd say that just the idea of cultivating talents was really what they stressed in the video a lot, about how Jefferson wanted to, find the smartest people in society, but then he also wanted to be able to distribute intelligence across the population through education. But he knew by doing this, it'd be expensive. So he knows that education is hard to have and easy to lose. So because of that, there needs to be funding. So that's why he believed that taxpayer dollars should go into forming an educational pyramid with different levels of schools. And yeah, other than that, I agree with your guys' points. And he always saw education as a wartime measure as well. So he thought it was important to have education in times of crisis. And yeah.
Just to jump back to what you said, I totally agree. You kind of mentioned the funding for education and how it was one of his goals to have that educational pyramid with the primary, then grammar, then university as a kind of structure for education. And he also mentioned that one of his goals when setting up curriculum for these schools was the need for history. And we at Fairfield University absolutely still have that need for history. And obviously it's a gen ed requirement in the Fairfield core. And I think it's important to always have history as a part of our education system, because if we aren't consciously referring back to it and thinking about it, we're going to forget history. And, everyone says if we forget about history, it's deemed to repeat itself.
Yeah, I know. To add on to that, I know in the video they say he really stresses reading, writing, arithmetic, and history, and I feel like at Fairfield it does a good job with teaching all of those, especially with different requirements, gen ed, to hit all of those different topics at some point in studying here. And then, but in the most part, history, I think going off that, Jefferson really wanted to stress, I think they mentioned in the video, how he wanted to really teach people to defend their liberties. So they do that by teaching history, especially of America coming right off the revolution. He wanted to make sure that people learned from the past events and learn what they had to do to gain what they have and how much value the liberties have.
Yeah, definitely agree with that, Ryan. Going off of like the liberties and um, what stood out to me in the video is that so when the iron is hot, that's when you can form a new man. And definitely that this iron that they're referring to is education and how this education can form new men and new kids and really develop their character well, that they're now away from their family, and it'll really serve a purpose in the long run.
Yeah. And kind of having to do with that, how education's kind of on the like the hot topic at the moment. He also wanted that to form future students and people because he wanted that system to kind of do away with the tyranny of ancestor worship and the life of succession and royalty that was occurring before. And he says that we're getting out of that system through education and obviously through the democracy that they were building.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Is any other further remarks on this question?
No, I think I'm good.
I think I'm good too. I think we can move on.
All right. So the next question, what according to French historian Michel Foucault were Enlightenment-inspired penal institutions designed to accomplish, and how do they compare to your education thus far in life? So I can start on this. Alex, you want to go?
No, I was going to say if anyone else wanted to start on this
Okay.
one.
I'll start on this one. So in this reading, there is a lot of different penal institutions, or there's three main ones introduced.
Yeah.
There was the where is it? There was the Metre, the Walnut Street prison, and the English model. And so, 10 minutes. All right. So the English model and the Walnut Street model is definitely not like our education in our life. And this was designed mainly to like punish the prisoners in a way and just get the message across that they're bad people. But the Metre one, I definitely think that that one compares to our education this far in life. And that's because in the Metre, it let the prisoners get knowledge and power and inspire them to be a different version of themselves. And I think this is like a really good strategy to attempt in the Metre because this will definitely change their past once they get out of prison. In the English model and Walnut Street one, that when they're gonna get out of prison, they're just gonna go back to their own ways of thievery or whatever they went to jail for. But Metre kind of sets them up for the future. And ironically, that this knowledge that the prisoners at Metre gained, they wouldn't have gotten that knowledge unless they were like forced to in prison. And sadly, that's how it is for a lot of education besides college, because like college is where people want to go and have an idea what they want to do, but that is only because of the forces of school that we had as a kid. And the forces of school allowed us to gain knowledge and potential subjects that we want to invest more time in the future. And then just like Metre, we wouldn't have grasped this knowledge if we weren't forced to.
I think that's an interesting way to look at it and compare it kind of to education, like saying that, yeah, we were forced to go through, elementary school, high school, but then in the end, college is a choice, but those earlier educations kind of set us up for it. And I just want to say that also with the Metre prison model, it was kind of, he emphasized training, and that was a model for the prisons. And he said training was accompanied by permanent observation. A body of knowledge was being constantly built up from the everyday behavior of the inmates. So it was just like a different place where the prisoners were kind of becoming educated. It was somehow their source of education. And they called it a machine for altering minds too, which I thought was interesting. And even knowledge was being organized in the prisons, but also it was a way to split up prisoners because somehow like something talked about how they weren't split up based on their crimes, but based on like something else. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but if you don't, you could totally just talk about something else.
Yeah, so well, I agree with both you guys, but I just think that the whole system of metre in general, with when it talks about how they want to punish like the least acts of disobedience, and they like want to isolate you into your own cell. I just feel like that kind of like method kind of would, at least personally, I feel like it would dissuade like me from really wanting to be disobedient. So I feel like that'd be like kind of like it almost seems like a really like severe kind of punishment, but like at the same time, punishing like the little things that you do would make you like kind of not want to do anything more serious, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think it was a radical way of, shaping and I guess
Yeah.
educating the prisoners in the time. Do we want to
And
move on to the last one?
yeah, let's
Yeah,
do
that's
it.
fine with me.
So, how can we relate the New York Times article to the other two texts? Are there any closing thoughts about this article?
Okay, I can start a little. So the first thing I thought of, like reading about the brain reading technology, it made me think of like an application of it and how we can maybe see into why prisoners kind of act the way they do or committed the crimes that they did. So I thought of this when the article said that the lack of impulse control that may underlie addictive behavior isn't a choice, but results from a malfunction of the brain. It said that on page 4. And so I like kind of thought, maybe are there malfunctions going on in the brains of like mass murderers or terrorists or crazy criminals that this new brain implant and brain reading technology could help us figure out? I think that could be a potential application of the brain technology.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree with that.
yeah, me
You want to
too.
go? I can add on to that.
Go for it.
So like one thing that I took away from article adding on was like the brain, yeah, like the brain technology is very interesting, but I think there's like challenges that come with it because I feel naturally like our bodies are kind of don't like the sensors that come with it. Like it says in the article, your brain doesn't like having stuff stuck in your brain. Over time, immune cells may swarm the implant covering with goop. And so like there's a challenge in trying to like have sensors that effectively work. And he says that one way they're trying to fix this is like shrinking the size of the sensors so that your brain doesn't really notices it much. But as it like gets used to it, it like kind of adjusts and like doesn't really want it there once it figures out what's going on. So I just thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, this article definitely fascinated me in like many different ways. I kind of had trouble relating it back to the other two texts, but I was thinking about it, and I guess that like knowledge and the brain kind of go hand in hand, and that's what the other articles are about. And like the brain allows you to dive deep and remember knowledge that you experience every day. Knowledge is what helps you grow as a person and discover things and subjects you're interested in.
I
And
guess, yeah.
some people have this crave for knowledge, and then they want to invent this technology that goes hand in hand with your brain, which is kind of crazy to think about because in the article, I forget who said it, I think it was Dr. Euste. He said that in the first place, it's already crazy how we can talk to our phones and we have a mini computer on our lap all day, and that we can eventually take this step to having the Google cap on our head and like having it be in sync with our brain all day. I think that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I totally agree that we're expanding so much with the innovations we're making, but at the same time, it kind of made me think about how I guess it's taking away our privacy a little bit if we do have this type of technology and innovation. Like, where's the line crossed with this privacy if we have this brain implant that can read our thoughts? Do we want that? I'm not sure. I think it's taking away some of the rights we have as human beings, and I think that's one of the things we should also kind of consider.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I
I mean,
definitely agree with that too.
I would add one thing, like tying it back to I think the Jefferson video. Like, I mean, I get Jefferson always like stress the importance of education, and I guess he'd want it to be as efficient as possible and effective as possible. So I guess the idea of like by learning as much as you can about the brain, which is like almost like the central hub of intelligence and like potential education. Like that would help. Like I'm sure it'd help people understand like where like how they can cater education towards the most efficient like an effective way of learning. But then I also agree with what you said, Alex, about like just how far is too far with like drawing the line, and like you can get almost too much like where you don't have any privacy. So there's like a fine line between studying the brain for educational purposes, but then going too far, you're almost like getting too much information on people.
Yeah, Ryan, I totally agree with that. And like going off of like too much information getting picked off you, imagine that the Google cat picks off like dots you don't want it to recognize, or
Yeah.
passwords or addresses, or getting framed for something because for like a crime that correlates with like the thoughts of yours. I think that's like crossing the line and taking a step too far. But in the article on the first page, it said, or the first or in the second page, it said, imagine the people suffering from locked-in syndrome, Lou Gehrig's disease, people affected by strokes, and who could benefit from this machine and help them interact with the world. And I think this is definitely that's definitely the most appropriate circumstance for this Google Cap to come into play to really help the population of people that really need it to live in life.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a way to expand education and make it accessible for all. But I think our meeting is about to end, so I just don't want it to cut off on us.
All right. I think that will wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.